Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's everybody today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm on my phone. I'm getting ready. I have to appointment that was supposed to be anytime between 12 and 5. And guess what time it is? 12. So
Yeah.
I'm watching from my phone. Is Megan on? Yep.
Yeah.
How you doing, Megan?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good. We'll give everybody a few minutes.
Okay.
I think Kim's going to try to jump on too, Niale, hopefully.
Yeah, I thought she said she was gonna be able to make this one.
Yeah. If there's a way to see everybody from my phone. There's Laura. Hey, Laura, happy late birthday. She may not be able to hear me yet. Laura, happy late birthday. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Everybody's muted.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right, cool. Well, we have got Megan Blanks here with MMH, who has been gracious enough to tell us her expertise as it relates to social media and how to advertise properly and help us stay out of trouble. So Megan, you want to tell a little bit about yourself and background and all that, and then you can get started?
Yeah. So I'm Megan Blanks. Like Carlson said, I'm the marketing director for McMandy McLeod Heller. I've been in real estate since 2006. So I got licensed. I was an assistant for a couple of years. As you can imagine, I was let go because nobody could afford assistants in 2008. So I actually came on board with MMH. I did pre-closing for about 8 years. So kind of learned this closing side of the process. And but because we have a lot of these or several of these alliance partners with Keller Williams, I liked the opportunity to get out from behind my computer and get to know agents on a deeper level than just transactional. And they kind of saw that that was my that was my ideal trajectory, was to kind of come out from behind the computer. And so I became their marketing director in 2000. Well, I think it'll be 4 years in August. So whatever that is. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a marketing background. I just spent a lot of time researching and learning how to do social media for business, not only to do it for the firm, but then also eventually learned enough where I felt educated to be able to advise real estate agents on how to do it properly, specifically for real estate, because there are some differences between just general business practices and real estate. I'll kind of go over a little bit of both, because I do see a lot of agents who not only use maybe other real estate content to repost, but then just other curated content from the internet, and just want to make sure that they're doing that properly, because otherwise it could result in accounts being completely shut down by Facebook or the other social media platforms. So yeah, I did some consulting as well, kind of on the side. I've got 2 small kids and a very kind of vigorous job here. So learned quickly that was just not, it was not sustainable, but I've been able to, get a social media class approved and teach that, and actually kind of working on another one, but with some of these changes that they've had since COVID and stuff, it seems to not be as easy to get them approved these days. So anyway, so just kind of consulting when I can and answering questions. Certainly, I'll kind of go through my little breakdown here, and then I'll take any questions. As I told Carlson, if there's anything I can't answer, I'll want to know the answer to it anyway. So I'll take the time afterwards to find out the information for you and get back to you guys. And then of course I'm available at MMH Firm is like the best way to get a hold of me, sending us a DM in Instagram or just info@mmhfirm.com is a good way to get a hold of me as well. So yeah. We're ready to get started.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay, yeah. So I kind of like to start by saying that although I work for a closing attorney, I am not an attorney. So certainly, and social media and policies are changing regularly. So I'd always advise just kind of trying to get a little bit of a refresh a couple of times a year just to make sure nothing major has changed. As far as I can tell, nothing that I'm going over here has had any significant changes. And a lot of it's just going to be kind of best practices. But first, I'll go over some of the legalities as far as advertising on social media or just the internet in general. So I connected with the GREC and then looked at the FMLS IDX agreement and then and the NAR standards of practice to kind of develop these. A lot of the verbiage is the same and overlaps. It might just kind of like be spoken or said or listed differently, but it all kind of covers basically the same things for the most part. So advertisement, any manner, method, or activity by which a licensee makes use of media to publicize the real estate for sale, rent, lease, or exchange. Media being websites, blogs, video blogs, social media, email campaigns, text messages, banner ads. So really it kind of, there's this wide umbrella that we want to make sure that we're following these specific rules, not just for like posting something to your profile on Instagram. Written permission. So just, I'm kind of a tried and true rule follower, and whether or not it's part of it. And I've learned from people who do some social media for real estate, but a lot who don't, and just across the board, if you are using anybody else's content, but other than your own, you need to ask for permission to use it. So I see a lot of real estate agents, especially ones that are just getting into the business, where they'll use, they want to use other agents' listings on their social media profiles to just have content. So especially if they're in the Atlanta area, we've got a lot of beautiful homes in different neighborhoods and want to advertise, but it's not necessarily their listing. It's not against the rules to do that. However, you need to have written permission, and it's not, a notarized stamped document. It can be as simple as a direct message, a text message, an email. A lot of agents don't do this. So I know I'm saying, I know a lot of people who do this and they have never, or have done this to me and have never asked. They're just doing it wrong. And you have every right to go to them and say, either correct it, even if they don't ask, but they give you credit in the caption. You have a right to go to them and say, I need you to take that down. And again, I would love to say it's 50-50. I kind of feel like it's more of 75-25, 80-20 on agents that really prefer people do not do this. I think you could argue both ways. If somebody else posting my listing is going to get the house sold. Now, granted, this is not like, let's, go forward in the future where the market is not as, is not where it is today as far as selling houses, right? Likely you don't even have time to post the listing on your Instagram account before it's getting a lot of offers if it's a good house and everything. But even in the market like a year ago. If some agents will say, if like somebody else posting this, my listing gets it sold, I don't care if they post it. Well, great. If they've asked you, go ahead and let them do it. If you feel comfortable with it, if your seller feels comfortable. I know I've heard stories where sellers find out or they see that their house is posted by somebody else and they get upset. So I mean, I think just for me, I just always advise clear communication, and that's not just like a best practice, but you, per the GREC, they said that you need to ask and get written permission. It's just, at the end of the day, you don't want to create problems. Like it's very rare that you're going to hear people who, you might hear my cat, sorry y'all. As soon as I start talking, she starts meowing. So it, sorry, of course she made me lose my train of thought.
Well, Megan, I'd love to chime in. Hi, Carlson. Hi, I'm Kim Jeans. I'm the co-host too. And I love what you're saying, because even this week, one of our top agents, they always send out just sold cards, even in this market, just to keep it moving. They're in the Rome market, so it's a little bit smaller market. So there's still a lot of print. And they did send out a just sold card on a listing that they were the selling agent, not the listing agent. Two things she did wrong. You are correct, and that they're not doing this right. And this is a top agent that really likes to follow the rules. So I had to help her clarify. She didn't have written permission, and she didn't give notice of the listing agent. And so she called and said, we've been doing this for so long. I said, I love you enough to say you're doing it wrong. You do have to have written permission. And I think for her, and I hope I'm right, I said an email will suffice as long as there's a two-way communication. If you're going to do that, even at closing or whatever the case may be, say, hey, do you mind if I send out a mailer on this one, and I'll give you credit at the bottom. And so we got through that one, but I'm seeing a lot of it, and you're right, it's a lot of the new agents. And so they do go, what we've said in our market center is to go to the top agent that they want to advertise and say, do you mind if I post some of yours? And just get permission. And when you do it right, it works for everybody. Just don't try to take somebody else's business, and don't make somebody else's business all about your business until you get it written permission. It is Greg and NAR. So it's a big deal. So thank you for coming to us with this.
Yeah. I unfortunately, like, perception is reality. So and that's where I say this is a really fine line. If I was a practicing agent, I don't know that I would be okay with other people doing it, simply because unless my name and brokerage, like specifically for Instagram, for instance, and even on Facebook, if they don't put it towards the beginning and you have to like click the little more to see the rest of the caption, unless somebody opens that caption fully, or on Instagram, for instance, unless your name and brokerage is like within that top line, they would have to click to see the rest of the caption. So it would be very easy for somebody to post a picture of somebody else's listing, and it would look like it's theirs unless the person read more, and people could be like, oh, wow, they're doing really, really good. Well, or they're listing these beautiful homes that are like 1 point whatever million, and they just got in the business. And if it's my listing and I worked really hard, I don't want somebody else to take credit, even if they gave me credit at the very bottom. But like, not everybody's opening that. And on a lot of these social media channels, you have 3-4 seconds at best to get their attention. And so I don't know. Again, if somebody comes to you and asks for permission, you do whatever makes you feel comfortable, as long as you've given it to them, and they ask. But I absolutely think you have every right to tell them to take it down, revise the caption to make sure that the brokerage, like it does, we'll kind of go into this in a second, but it does say that, if you're going to advertise somebody's listing, there needs to be a direct link to that listing, so that it satisfies the requirement to have the brokerage's name, their address, their phone number, things that you wouldn't necessarily type out into a caption. So I don't know. Again, I could argue kind of both ways, but at the end of the day, asking for permission and then making sure that you're giving the appropriate credit will save you a lot of trouble. And I think what I was going to say was, I haven't heard maybe a handful of stories where anybody like there's nobody at the GREC that's just that their whole full-time job. It would be probably more like several people's full-time jobs to look at people's social media all day to make sure that they are doing it correctly, and and ding them for improper stuff. But it's other agents, it's other brokers seeing that they're doing it incorrectly. And if unfortunately we have deals where the transaction can get contentious, and if somebody wanted to report you to the GREC because you were constantly advertising incorrectly, even if they had nothing to do with the offense, it's just, let's not give like people a reason to get us in trouble, whether or not it has something to do with what actually kind of caused it. But if we're just doing things correctly over here, then it should help us across the board. People are not, from what I can tell, from what I've heard, they're not actively looking at everybody's social media. I mean, it would just take a lot, but that doesn't give you license to not do it correctly, because you never know how someone's going to find out. And if you've been doing it repeatedly wrong for a really long time, the consequences could be really, really bad. So, again, just written consent.
And I love that. And I think, and I hope you don't mind if I chime in. I think because we're a company of doing the next right thing and the culture that we carry, it's really easy for us to get permission from another agent. And I see agents doing it really, really well. Well, they'll say, look at this beautiful new listing by my counterpart or business partner, Laura Jones or whatever. So you can give them credit in that line, and yet it still looks busy. Look at this gorgeous new listing, and I can show it to you anytime, blah, 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 blah. So just give credit where credit is, give written permission, give credit where credit is due, and just hold yourself to a higher level of standard. That's who we are as a company. And it's really not that hard. And I've never told anyone that they could not post one of my listings. So I'm an active agent in the market center as well. And so, I'm happy to have the extra advertising and to help the younger, newer agents get growing. So that's easy to do, but we love what you're bringing. Okay, let's keep going. We may want to see if anybody has any questions. Anybody want to chime in? Anybody have a question right now? You can raise your hand or hit the chat.
I have a question.
Okay, wonderful.
Hey, good afternoon,
Kiana.
everyone. Hey, my question is, I want to go back to you, Kim, with the initial story that, or example that you gave about the selling agent sending out mailers. So based off of what you're saying, although I may have represented the buyer, I'm not in compliance if I were to send out postcards saying that I sold this property, the highest sale in the neighborhood or something like that. That's out of compliance. I would need to gain permission.
The easiest way to do it is two things. Make sure you don't use their photography. And I know Megan would attest to that, because that is their property. So you can't take their front photo that's posted on FMLS. We're not allowed to use their photography, number one, and without written permission. The easiest thing to do, what I've done at closing is, say, Kiana, I send a mailer to a specific market area and I'd love to share this with them. And they'll go, absolutely, of course. I do think getting written permission is the best course of action. I'd love for Megan's opinion on this. Just make sure if you do get it, and then you do take your own photography, or ask them if you can use their shot. And I give them credit, even if it's on the bottom, I give them credit list exclusively by, Kiana at KW, whichever office. So I do. What do you think, Megan? Am I right? Am I anywhere close to on point? Do we have to get written permission to send out a postcard on a house we sold if we give credit?
So my knowledge is more on like digital advertising versus versus like a mailer. However, I would absolutely say that getting permission, especially because like you said, the photo is not yours. It's owned by the former owners. And I think also, again, like I'm just a tried and true rule follower. So I would always ask permission. 9 times out of 10, I don't think you're going to find anybody who's going to have a problem with it. But just disclosure up front, I feel like it's going to save you a lot of headaches. And as we all know, we're working with these agents, some on a regular basis, and as big as real estate is, it's so small, and our reputation, we just don't want to build a reputation of somebody who kind of takes other people's property, or kind of goes behind anyone's back to further our own business. Like we just want to be transparent, I think, upfront. But I hate to advise specifically on like sent mailers. That's just not my wheelhouse as far as the
They're almost mirror images of each other. So
but I was going to say, I mean, I don't think that it's that far off.
right, they're really close. I hope
Yeah.
we helped you a little bit. Try to get permission when you can, written in an email suits it. Take your own picture or ask to use that one. And then the way I approach it at the closing table or even in the transaction, I could say something like to Carlson, this has been a great transaction together. I'd like to celebrate that. We do some mailers as well. And I'd like to send one out celebrating this success for us. And then they'll usually nod, because I just use the word us. Now that doesn't say that their name's going to be as big as mine on the postcard, nod, nod, wink, wink. So I can send out the mailer and give them credit for listing the property at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you've got some other stuff. Anybody else have another question you want to fire in?
Yeah, can I clarify something?
Sure. Hi, Amy.
I've seen some postcards, and I would like to send one myself, and they're sort of a list of recent solds in the neighborhood, and as
Right.
part of like establishing myself as the neighborhood realtor. And I
Right.
know that it's just a list of addresses, and I know that the person who sent the postcard out didn't list or sell all of those. It's just sort of, it's basically information from the FMLS. Is that okay?
And what I've seen, and Megan, again, chime in, please, because you're wonderful as our guest speaker. I talk all the time. I've seen it information directed. I can't remember the bottom line on it, Amy, and I know you've seen it, where it says information deemed to be correct, and giving credit to FMLS. I've never seen
Yes.
one, and I don't know the answer. I've never seen one where it says a street address listed by, street address listed by. So, I mean, I think we need to seek further clarification on that. But the way I've seen them go out, and I get them all the time myself, is they have the list of addresses with your information, et cetera. And then all this information deemed correct, source pulled from FMLS. So that's what I've seen. We probably need to seek further clarification. Anything on that, Megan? I
was going to say, so in my conversations with the GREC, I think it's more, once it's sold, that's public knowledge. Anybody could go online. They don't have to have access to FMLS, obviously, to see that a house is sold. So I think you're simply stating fact at that point. But you definitely need to give credit of where this information source comes from. But my understanding is, you can list them, list the addresses out, and then just like you were saying, just give credit to where you got that information from. So yeah, so
that's where I've
but the picture part, like now, if you were going to list the addresses underneath a picture, then that's where we start to have a problem, because, and my next kind of like little note was just, it's called scraping. It's like a terrible term. I wish they'd come up with a different word, but that's exactly what it is. It's just plagiarism from someone's website, the removal of information, pictures without written permission. So I'd say the picture, because you do not own the photo, I think that's where a lot of people get confused, is like, oh, well, it's posted on the internet, so anybody can use it. Well, no, it's copyright infringement. You cannot take other people's property and scraping it from a website, whether or not it's someone's personal website or FMLS or any public place like that, or any website. You cannot take it. There are plenty of websites, if you weren't looking for like a specific photo, a specific house, but you wanted to use a picture of a house, there's like a defined or like a more specifically refined search you can do in Google to look for pictures of houses that don't have any kind of license requirement. But there's a lot of websites, Unsplash, Pixabay, several different ones where you can pull high quality photos where credit is not required. So it's just, that's part of the stipulation for those websites. But if you're listing, and that would be for a house that's, on social media, but then I would definitely say with a flyer or a postcard, using their picture, you definitely need to get written permission before doing that.
And I think just one other quick thing, I think another way to easily solve it, back to your question, Amy, is, and we all like to do this, although I'm not a photographer, taking a picture of our client in front of the property just before or after closing, because then that becomes your property. once you take that picture because they're the new owner. And then, so ideally you could have a picture of the house with the people. And then even if you want to use other addresses, source that as FMLS, and then you get a lot of credit. So, okay.
Well, and also, I mean, this isn't like a law, but what I always suggest when it just comes to content in general, people connect so much better with people than they do with houses. I mean, I know that several agents will follow each other, and I don't know about you guys. And as the person who's doing all of our social media for the firm, I follow a lot of agents, and when you get just house after house, I mean, I am scrolling past those. I am not looking at them in any kind of links, unless it was really going to stand out. But I will stop on the ones with a photo of a person, and that's just, you're not only connecting with the person and they just bought this house, but you have an opportunity to tell a story. So just like a little content, like, note for you guys, that's always going to be better performing content in general. So, but absolutely, it's your property at that point, as far as the photo is concerned. So, okay, so also part of the rule specifies that you need to list the brokerage, their phone number. It doesn't say their full address. At least the last I checked, it had not revised that it needed the brokerage's full address on the advertisement, but that their name and their phone number. As long as there's a link to the listing that has all of that information, you're fine. You don't have to type it out in a caption. But what becomes tricky is that not every social media platform you have the ability to link in the caption and browse out to the actual listing. So Instagram is the one I'm referring to there. I see a lot of agents who will put links in the captions. They are not active links. You cannot click on a link, not on your phone, not on a website. So if you're gonna do that, just put the brokerage's name and phone number in the caption, then you satisfy that requirement. But if you've got a listing, yours or someone else's that you've gotten permission from, go ahead and put the direct listing link to the listing in the caption so they can browse out. You can include the photos or maybe a couple. Actually, like, I don't even think it's a good idea to include maybe not like the main photo that you would have on a listing, but either another angle of the front or maybe an interior photo or something like that. So that if somebody were to see it, they're not like, oh, I've already seen that house. So they might see a different one and be like, oh, I don't think I've seen that. Maybe it turns out they have, but then they've seen this house now more than once. Maybe the first time they saw it, they either scrolled by it or they didn't think it was going to work for their client. And the second time around from a different picture, they thought maybe it could work for them. So just another little content tip too. But you just want to make sure that the link is to the listing and or the brokerage's name and the phone number is in the caption. It actually doesn't specify that you need to include the actual agent's name because the agent is not the owner of the listing, the broker is. However, I think that the person deserves, and I would always tell people to give credit to the agent, brokerage, like both together, not just the brokerage, just simply because I think that that's just, they've earned the listing. But as far as like the rule, the 520-1 -.09 GREC rule says it actually is just the broker that needs to get the credit for the photo or for the listing if you're reposting someone else's listing. But that might be something. I mean, again, I haven't heard that that's changed, and I always feel like some brokerages kind of more or less require or recommend that it be done one way or another, because not everyone I've found is the same. So if anybody has question about that, I would always say just to refer to the brokerage, and even just like in different groups, the Rawls group might have different opinion on some of these things. But as far as the GREC goes, it just says the brokerage name and phone number need to be referenced when listed in the social media post for that specific listing.
And then I want to throw this in if it's okay on the brokering side of this, because we brokers do have to know and understand this and reference it quickly. And that's why I was glancing at my phone. I do apologize. There is, and if you can just simply Google it, guys, and it's just the Greg advertising policy. And it's right here. It's 4 pages, a very quick read. And it's very, it explains 98% of what we're talking about for the most part. And we're required to know all of this. Also, in our market center, I don't know if all of them do it, we actually require our agents to sign off that they're going to adhere to this advertising policy. So that's another way that the brokerages can cover themselves. Because if an agent goes rogue, imagine that never happens, right? It does. That would they have signed this? So at least we've done our part on the market center side to say, hey guys, we told you this and you signed this form. This happened to us just 2 months ago. An agent that's been with us, 17 or 18 years, made a mistake. I don't remember the exact context of which it was, yet because they had signed an advertising compliance, the market center and the brokerage, and because of that, and we were able to do a quick correction and, coming at it from a spirit of resolve, we're able to solve it without it going any further. But that's just something to consider. Whatever you send out, you are representing not only yourself, your entire market center. So just be conscious of that. So, and I know you've got some other topics too. So.
Well, I was going to say that kind of leads into my next slide. It's the NAR standard of practice 12-10. It's all about disclosure. So just making sure that it's your obligation to present a true picture in your advertising of not only the listing, but who also got it. So it's in line with what we've already discussed as far as, if you're posting somebody else's listing, you need to make sure that you are putting in there that it's not yours and disclosing that correctly. But even when it comes to photos, I mean, if you think about, some people can alter photos to show, to take, a power line out or something like that. It's one thing to maybe take a trash can that was left in front of the photo out, and there's just so many editing apps and stuff that you can use to do that, but you can't edit and change the outs, anything that would be depicted, like if you were to stand in front of the house. So like I said, power lines are a really great example, or tree branches that are coming in that might kind of change what people think or perceive the house to be like. You can't make any of those creative changes as well, but just making sure that we're giving a true representation of how we're affiliated with the property, whether or not it's our listing or it's somebody else's, and then we got permission from them. And then here's another tricky thing. And so this is where, just not to beat a dead horse about, reposting other people's listings. However, this is a very good reason not to do this, because you are responsible for updating the details of that listing within 30 days of it being outdated. So if you were to list someone else's, and this is why also for your own listings, I would avoid putting price in the caption, because you're required to edit the caption to reflect any kind of price change within 30 days of it being outdated. You certainly have to change, or you're supposed to change the status of it. So if it's, for sale, or you put that it's pending or under contract, you are supposed to go back in and change the caption after it's sold to say sold, and put information about who sold it. And you don't have to put, I don't think, the price, because that's public knowledge, but you do have to, because you're still at that point advertising it, or it's being advertised. So you're I think advertising actually changes that word, because once it's sold, you're not advertising it for sale anymore. So the rules kind of change as far as the terminology, but you are responsible for updating the information within 30 days of it being outdated. So if you are somebody who has a lot of listings, but also uses other people's listings as content, whether or not they give you permission, you're supposed to make those changes. And I think probably a lot of agents don't have time to go back through the records to see, oh, well, wait, did that sell? Who sold it? Or what if it was somebody else's listing, and then maybe it goes, maybe it expires, or they withdraw it and another brokerage lists it, and now you've got the incorrect broker listed in your caption. And you'd be surprised at how many people, especially if they're just learning about who you are, they'll go through and they'll scroll through your account and see which, posts you've put up. And so they could be reading things that are old and assuming even that information, even if it's 6 months ago on a post, that it's correct. So you want to make sure that it's updated. So that is kind of a tricky thing about advertising your listings online, is that you are responsible for updating it. If the link goes to FMLS, or like a listing, any kind of link to the listing, it will update automatically. So then you won't have to say too much or make any changes, or very many changes to the listing, or the caption, because that listing will be updated and that satisfies that requirement, because it's updated. It will say, when they click on the listing, it will say sold, and it will say for how much, and who the broker or the listing and selling agent were affiliated with the transaction. But it does get tricky. It's a little bit more time intensive than you would expect it to be. And I feel like you guys only have time for your own stuff, let alone other people's listings and content, unless you're a brand new agent and you don't have as much of that. Again, permission to do that, but you do have to go back and make those changes, or you're supposed to go back and make those changes. Again, most everything I'm saying, you guys know 80% of people are not doing these things, but they should be. So, okay. Let's see. And then I kind of touched on it briefly, but just copyright infringement, and user generated content. So not only as it applies to real estate content, other people's listings and things like that, but I think it's a really great opportunity to, in your social media, to use content from other users. I mean, it's a thing. I think what gets people a little overwhelmed with social media is they feel like they're the ones that only have to create the content. But you can use other content, not just, of course, other people's listings, but if you have a certain area that you farm, or certainly we're here in Atlanta, and there's now, especially now that things are opening up and we've got events starting to come back and different things. And it's a really great opportunity for, for agents to kind of celebrate what's going on in Atlanta, if it fits their niche, if they've got a certain, like I said, a certain area of town or a neighborhood, you can post content from other people. Again, get permission to do so. Even with that, I mean, likely you're not going to have their email address. It's just a quick message, direct message to the owner of that content. I usually just like screenshot a picture of whatever it is that I want to repost. But I think it's, you could do that for services that you're affiliated with, or different local businesses, events going on, anything like that. 9 times out of 10, nobody's going to have any problem with you doing it. But I will say that I have emailed or sent messages to people asking to repost their photos, and very politely they said, no, this is licensed content, that unless you were a member of this membership thing, or just like, thank you for asking, but no, like we're not. And I would never know by looking at the post or the caption or the picture. It could look very generic, and they just said no, and totally fine. And they were all very kind about it. So again, just remembering that just because it's posted online doesn't mean it's up for grabs, and it is copyright infringement to use it without getting approval. And actually, I have a really good story in my class where I had asked an account if I could repost their photo, and they said, well, actually, it's not mine, it's this other person. So I went to them and asked them, oh, well, no, it's not mine. And it was like 4 different accounts before I actually found the creator of the picture. And when I asked her if I could repost it, she said, thank you so much for asking. I've had this post has been reposted 100 times, and you're maybe the first or second person that's ever asked me permission to use it. Which just, and I think it was like a picture of a post-it, like somebody written a little saying on a post-it. Like, it was not anything crazy, but it was her content. And it kind of made me pretty bummed out that she she was never asked. Of course, she doesn't have like pending lawsuits against all these people because they reposted it, but it just kind of goes to show you that I feel like modeling best practices and behavior in this way will hopefully kind of turn it around um, and make it just better overall, just kind of the way that we treat each other online. And it's so saturated, and it's a really great source of advertising, but can get really sticky very quickly. So yeah, I mean, so that's pretty much it. Like I said, I am open to questions. I will say too, Facebook business pages, you violate Facebook's terms of service if you do not advertise on a business page. So all of your agents need to make sure that they are advertising on their business page. And I get a lot of pushback on that because people will say, well, I've been on Facebook, but my business has not been on Facebook as long as my personal account. So I've got, all these followers on my personal account, but I only have like a couple people looking at my business. Just post whatever the listing is or advertisement on your business account, then you can share it to your personal. And then as long as there's the tie back to the business account, then you've satisfied their requirements and you're fine. But if you were to post your listing on your personal account, then you're violating their terms of service and they can shut your account down. And it's not like a temporary hold. They could close the whole thing down and you've lost everything that you've worked hard for it up to that point and have to rebuild. So definitely want to make sure that their posting is on their business page. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specific, but I'm happy to stay and take questions.
Okay, team, what questions do we have for Megan right now? Anybody? Not so far. Anybody, let me know if you want to chime in. What I will say, and I think many of us who are agents on here, our brains start swimming when we have to stop and think about, am I okay to post? Am I okay to post? Can I not? So my conversation around that on the agent side of things, thank goodness that I have a virtual assistant that I can call on when needed. And she does all of my social media posts. It's a group of people and there's so many out there. So I'm not going to mention any names yet. I have a personalized virtual assistant that charges me, I think it's $20 an hour. It's not a lot of money. And she does a lot of social media postings for me, and they're always compliant because she only does real estate. So it's a group and they're all in real estate. So they do know these rules. And so usually she'll send me one when I very first started working with her about 8 or 9 years ago. And she said, is this kind of the brand you're looking for? And this is what it looks like. And we've evolved it a little bit over time, and they're always spot on and they always give credit where credit's due. And for new agents, if there's new agents on the line or agents looking to grow their business, which is probably most of us, what I did is when I first got in the business, went to 4 or 5 heavy hitters in my market center, and I was with a different company at the time. And then I figured it out, only 22 years full-time in the business, only 3 years with the wrong company. And now working into my 19th year with Keller Williams, as I found the best of the best. And I just said, hey, can I just, would you allow me to post any of your things? And so if you're doing open houses for agents and things like that, ask their permission to post, and they're not going to tell you no because they're part of your family. It would be shocking. Just give them credit. And so it made me look busier, and I could cherry pick their listings. And I just would shoot them an email and say, hey, I'm going to post, post oak trit on, is that fine? And 5 of them, no less than 5, said, post whatever you want. It's fine. Stick my name on the bottom because that's who we were. So that worked out for me. And it really, really helped. So any questions around that? No.
Well, I'd almost say too, and like you were saying, ask several agents and kind of getting the, because similarly, when I post photos of agents or their clients after closing, and so if they're like holding, a sold sign or something like that, and they post it on their social media, I'll ask for permission prior to posting it on our account to make sure that it's okay with them, that I post or, use their photo. And 9 times out of 10, we have like no problem. If it's somebody who we've had as agents coming through and doing a lot of closings with over the years, they kind of have given me like blanket permission. Yes, like you can post any photo that we post. Like if we've posted and we've tagged you, you can post. So I don't have to go to them every single time and ask. And certainly if you're doing it the right way, then they're not going to care. And then you're saving that little step of having to ask every single time. And again, most times, 9 times out of 10, they're like, I don't care if you post it. Yeah, give me the proper credit. And it's just more advertising, more eyes that potentially see it. Maybe it's an opportunity for us to work together. So yeah, I think it can really benefit people both ways. But again, not everybody sees it that way. So it's always why you need to ask.
And sometimes it's a yes and sometimes it's no. I would just encourage everyone on the call to it would take you less than 5 minutes just to Google the Greg advertising and its rule. All you have to do is say Greg advertising rule and it pops up readily. It's 4 pages. I literally took me 5 minutes because I had to double check it for that incident last week just to make sure. And so it's worth it. So you can share knowledge with other agents in your market center and around you. So any other questions that you have? Because if not, I wanted to thank Carlson for putting this together today. And I know she got called out on appointment. And so I stepped in with us together. So any other questions, guys? We're so thankful that you guys join us. Our next one is going to be on the 21st at noon. And I know you'll have the link sent out. And I think that one is more over on I think it's on how not to get sued. I can't quite remember. But we don't like to get sued. I'll tell everybody. I'm the broker of a very large office, actually 4 offices. So I have West Cobb, Rome, Cartersville, Calhoun. And so I'm like, guys, I do not look good in orange or stripes. Others I can go with, but those aren't on my color palette. So let's not send me there, please. I don't want to go to Greg jail. But you guys are wonderful, Megan. You've been so precious. I want to thank everybody for being on the call. And if you don't have any other questions, just let us know and we'll see you in 2 weeks, okay?
Thank you guys for letting me come in. I'm going to just post my email here in the chat in case anybody has any questions. It is a generic email, but it comes directly to me. So if anybody has anything, and then at MMH Firm on other platforms is another good way to get a hold of me. So yeah.
Let's go sell a few more houses before Father's Day. How about that? Let's go get it.
Yes.
Go get it, guys. Love you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.